need to have a talk. You like video games. You're on my channel. You clearly like video games. What do you think about Easter eggs? I want to talk to you today about secondhand storytelling and why I'm kind of annoyed, but not really annoyed at some YouTubers who are making Easter egg based content. Number one, I love that content. It's super fun to delve into Easter egg development. It's super fun to delve into Easter eggs from a perspective of a community and their resources and their optimism to find something greater that will have some form of resolution. That resolution doesn't always exist, everybody. Secondhand storytelling is the process of telling a story without actually saying it. This is not uncommon, and a great example is the movie Seven. At the end of the movie Seven, spoiler alert, it's an old movie, there is a box that is opened, and there is a very, very pronounced reaction, dramatized before you, with crying and a whole slew of events occurring. But the contents of that box are never revealed to you. You don't know what's in that box. So you might be saying to yourself, well, Ian, what's in the box then? What is in it? Why is this so relevant? What is it? It's his wife's head. And this is relevant because this is how secondhand storytelling works and why Easter eggs can be more important than you think. Not always, but we're getting there. A liminal experience is an event that takes place with no beginning and no end. It's an event where you feel like you've been there before, but something's just off. Or it's a dream-like feeling, or that one time you went to a party and you took something that you might not have normally took, and it took you somewhere else mentally. Liminality is a process of crafting a feeling that is not something we pay attention to on the regular. The making of this video is liminal in its experience because the process of making it is just a hallway to the end state, which is the process of you watching this, which is so far removed from the process of making it that I can't even comprehend your experience because it's so uniquely yours, just like mine is so uniquely mine. But at the same time, if I had you step into my place right now, it would feel somewhat familiar. The curtains behind me, the microphone before you, the monitor, and the teleprompter, everything would feel kind of normal because you've seen it 1,000 times, so it's liminal. A endless hallway in a hospital, a bathroom that doesn't fit the aesthetic of the rest of the house. You've been there before, but it's somehow its own thing. Easter eggs are like liminality in some regards, and others are just a photo or a reference. So the head was in the box, but we were never told it. What does this have to do with Easter eggs? Today I want to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, and there's a lot to know about Butcher Creek. There's a lot of things that you'll need to speculate on about Butcher Creek. But ultimately, Butcher Creek is a place that has almost no significance in Red Dead Redemption 2. It feels like a place out of time, a place that doesn't quite belong where it is. It's at this trailhead. It's people who are disfigured. They talk funny. The animals are aggressive. The people are aggressive. There's no store. It's just a place that exists. Butcher Creek is a fascinating place to me because it seems like there's no end to content creators talking about it. And so when I got interested in it, I wanted to know the psychology of the Easter eggs that were taking place. To give you a short synopsis, there is a singular mission that takes place in Butcher Creek that has you delving into a cave that is filled with arsenic that is pouring out of the walls and into the creek itself because of a dig that occurred where they blew away the soil and they left behind the rocky remnants that held up that mountain. Within that mountain was arsenic. And you might be wondering, okay, why did you go there? Well, we went there because a Native American businessman or representative for a business wanted to purchase that land. And this is important because the events that transpire clearly state that the people of Butcher Creek had no desire to get rid of their property. This was their property. And you might be wondering, well, why? Why would that be the case? And it seems to me that the Murfred brothers and Butcher Creek have a lot in common, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that statement. Maybe the situation at the dig and these caves and the arsenic are why these people are still there to this day. They went there to join some mining town and begin mining out this cave in some hope of making money. But when the cave system and the mine system failed, they were left to rot because the company didn't care. Now, it's important to know that during the 1890s and even slightly into today, it was not uncommon for towns to be owned by companies, for you to employ someone and also give them room and board and some form of currency for them to provide for themselves in the room and board that you provided. Many ranch hands and mine workers lived right on site. This is what we see in Ensburg, and clearly something that the developers were aware of. You see how the thread is beginning to form with secondhand storytelling here? You see, all we did was discuss one side mission, and now we have a greater thread to follow to solve the Easter eggs that are put before us. We know that Butcher's Creek should have been more to the game, but ultimately ended up not being, having a small plot that had absolutely nothing to do with Red Dead Redemption 2 and the events of Arthur Morgan at all. But we know that in real life, Native Americans who were not afraid of the civilization and the white people coming overseas did team up with them. They did side with them. They found ways to get their chiefs off of property so that way companies can move in, and these people were handsomely rewarded for their skills in negotiation of getting Native Americans off of their property or the property that they desired to purchase. This is why reservations exist in the first place. They were provided to the Native American people who are being pushed and pushed and pushed in horrible, horrible ways by the early settlers. Well, now we have so much more context. So we have a representative, possibly, from a Native American tribe who is treasonous with their tribe and is working in tandem with a corporation to annex people from property so that way they can purchase it up from the government without risk of having to relocate them or hire them or seek agreements with them or find treaties with them, because that's a lot of work, especially during that time period. That's a lot of work. Taking somebody who knows that culture, knows those people, and sending them to do that is a lot easier. However, the people of Creek are clearly religious in nature. Early settlers in America came from Puritan backgrounds. That's why we still to this day have Amish and other sub Judo Christianity, I believe. I'm not really one for religion. Anyway, that's why we have those people, though. That's where they came from. They came from the early settlers who passed down their tradition time and time again. And when you have a settlement just segregated and completely isolated, people are fearful of these people because of their deformities and their way of life and their skulls and skeletons and bones, and it's just grisly, and there's corpses hanging and they're tanning right there and probably stinks, to be completely frank. I don't think there's a bathhouse. There's nowhere to shop. There's no trader. They don't really want to interact with you. They're normally rude people. They're in the middle of a trailhead that every time somebody has to go through, they go around, which is something that we see within the story. We're getting all of this contextual information within the means of secondhand storytelling, but why these Easter eggs? This is the hardest part because I set up a lot here. I told you a lot. I gave you a lot of information. And now I'm going to tell you that sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter because these areas were developed for a completely different purpose. The narrative that you were given is irrelevant to the overall meaning of the Easter eggs before you. Now, of course, we can find the threads and link them together, but at a certain point, you're going to need some form of creative director to tell you, yes, that is exactly what we intended 100%. I love Easter eggs. And this video is kind of hard to talk about because I'm objectifying some form of art and I'm telling you exactly what to think, goes against everything I believe in. I don't like to do that. That's not the point of my show. Omni Obscurium is two completely different people discussing things and coming to conclusions without argument, even though we may not share perspectives. Let's start from the top. We all know about Banjo Man. He's at the same spot every day, playing his banjo, giving little wild, wild west vibes to the whole area, not really making it feel scary, but more like a town lost in time. This feeling is exacerbated by the fact that in the woods of the Roanoke Ridge, right by the creek, you can find these whispers in the woods speaking the name Eugene and all these other weird nuanced names. But if you head into Valentine, what's super funny is there's an entire movie about it that you can go pay 50 cents to watch. Or maybe it's 25 cents. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what's really fascinating about this point that's being made is there is relevancy in that area. It has been documented, it's been explored. There are weird things occurring in that area that follow some tale of mysticism. 1899 was when the painting was created, Christianity Overrules Paganism by Dore. It's a beautiful painting, but 1899 is the same year that all of this game takes place. There's clearly some conversation occurring, if not in America, but in Europe, where paganism is being stepped on, it's being pushed down. Christianity is rising up, this monotheistic powerhouse that is just sweeping through all of these nations with their beliefs, which is perfectly fine. But you have to think about who is talking about it. Who is doing things at Butcher Creek in order to get this property? Who is the one who's setting up tricks to scare them off? It's a Native American civilized man working under a corporation. When you start putting things into perspective, the markings on the uh, when you start putting things into perspective, the markings on the outhouses starts to make a bigger picture. He might have seen the very smart and sophisticated people of the civilized world and assumed that they were just as well learned and were as intelligent as they were. The markings on these outhouses making the shape of a pentagram with his configuration. He figured eventually they would put it together and figure it out. But ultimately, they did not. It's not something that they resolved to repair. But seeing Red Dead Redemption and recognizing that the mysticism and magic of that world is real. I mean, for Christ's sake, there's possibly a time traveler by the name of Francis Sinclair who has you collect rock carvings of things that don't exist at that time period and is weird. Then you see him as a child. Weird. Who was his father? The secondhand storytelling is so fascinating because there is no reason to tell you he did it. And if you believe he didn't do it, then who did? It has to exist for a reason, after all. It can't just exist for no reason. Is that land truly cursed, or is it just a piece of land that is truly cursed? The one with the shed over top of it, and the red light glows ominously from underneath, presenting the pentagram that you see in the game. Is he slightly correct? Or did he will this into being in his efforts of scaring these people off of that land? If mysticism within the Red Dead Redemption universe is real, what could have this been pointing at? I mean, we understand that Red Dead Undead Nightmare was a completely spin-off that had nothing to do at all with Red Dead Redemption's main story. Could this have been a remnant or an artifact from a point when Red Dead Redemption 2 Undead Nightmare was supposed to come out? We don't have the context or the clarification to state that that 100% is the answer, just like how we don't have the answer if the Native American was the one that did it. We know he sets up talismans and different wind chimes and claims specific things, but we also see him as an eccentric, somebody who's bizarre, somebody who's strange and is manipulating these people. To say with 100% certainty that this is satanic, that this is paganism, that this is Wiccan, it's not Wiccan. It's such a grandiose statement because there is no context for you to have those conclusions. The pentagram is a very popular and iconic symbol that means all kinds of things depending on where you're from. I mean, you could even say that it's something to do with the Irish. You could say that it has something to do with Celticism from the Irish that put that pentagram there because in Celtic belief there is a pentagram symbol and it can be found within nature. They have put that kind of symbol throughout the world that they traveled. I love Easter eggs because I don't need to know what all of them mean. Sure, an Easter egg can simply be a actual Easter egg behind a wall, or an Easter egg of a reference being made, or a cameo of another character that you don't directly interact with but is existent in the world around you. Easter eggs can be so many different things, but the Butcher Creek Easter eggs are so special because they're so unique and there's so many within one area. I want to talk about the markings on the back of the outhouse now. If you go to outhouse number 4, you'll see on the back of it LJSM, or as some people believe, LESM. Now, we don't have any context to what that means, and we don't have any context if that's a location, if that's a character. We don't have any context at all to what these 4 letters could possibly represent. And I'm here to say one theory, one that I have not seen brought up, not one that has been contextualized in any regard, but what if it's 2 abbreviations for people's names? Now, I came to this conclusion for several reasons, and was reminded of something in my real life. When I did lighting work for video games, one of the things that was super fascinating to me was uncovering people's secrets before they ever reached the shelves. Because I had to do the nuanced task of going over a level with a fine-tooth comb to make sure the lighting did what it's supposed to do, and that is landmark the player and ground them in the reality that they are in. Sometimes lights are used for specific reasons. Maybe it's guiding the player somewhere, or it's setting a desired mood. Now, that's really important because when you travel through Butcher Creek, what do you notice? The diffusal glow on some of the buildings might not have been finished. They glow red from a distance. 2 in particular that I know of for sure. When you see the pentagram, if you turn around immediately where the banjo man sits, you can see a red light. If you're coming down the path and you pass the abandoned shack, entering Butcher Creek, I believe from the east, you'll notice there's a red light in front of you. Now, these might have been mistakes from when a team was disassembled. Maybe a lighting lead or lighting worker was told to go work somewhere else, and that team would finish it up. But lighting work is specific. Modeling work is specific. Texture work is specific. People strive to be the best at these specific tasks because those are the things that make up the world that they envision within their own head. It is not my goal to stand here today to answer the questions that everybody is foaming for, but really it's a way of me putting on a very important hat for you, and that is to think differently. With Omni Obscurium and many of my other shows, I've always strived to make people think a little bit differently and talk about the nuances within things without needing an objective reason for everything to be. Within Butcher Creek, we don't have objective evidence, we don't have objective reasoning for anything that takes place. And that nuance and that speciality of things not having a constituted resolution really makes these Easter eggs that much more special. Because it gives us an opportunity as a community to talk about these Easter eggs, talk about these weird events, these bizarre happenings in a town that almost nothing happens in within the main story. Why is this place so bizarre? LJSM. I think these are two people who worked on the map. I think these two people were regulated to put together the Roanoke Ridge, as it were. And as you can tell from that area, it's slightly flatter. It's got steeper things. The creek runs through it. There's not much going on in the wilderness there. It's a little bit more reserved. There's Beaver Hollow and sure the ladder that goes up and out of the cave, and you can go to the arsenic cave and you can find a way to get into the ceiling area, and there's the one cave painting, but ultimately there's not much because they put their time into Butcher Creek. These are people who felt that the work that they did would go unappreciated because the area that it was placed in might not have had much going on. Many of a player would just go straight through it or kill everybody for the hell of it and loot them constantly. They wanted to give a reason for players to actually want to visit Butcher Creek. See what the hell is going on here. With a small story, it's grounded it in a horror mystery. It's been grounded it's been grounded in this scary contextualization that we as players have to put together. What an incredible Easter egg that is. And there's many more out there like this that I just don't have the time to talk about because they're liminal, they're secondhand. You don't need the full context. That's not the point. The context is there for those who need it, and then there's no context there, but there are still people trying to put the strings together on their ghostly photo corkboard, I guess. Whiteboard, maybe. I don't know. Word document. Anyways, the Butcher Creek mystery doesn't need answering. It needs appreciating. Because at the end of the day, I would love to know what LJSM means. Of course, if I retain the belief that these are two people's initials who worked on Butcher Creek, odds are I will never hear from them. There will never be a statement about it. But then again, I could be wrong. This could have been something that pointed towards Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare 2. We will never know, and very well may not ever be meant to know, which is a bizarre statement. But if you think about it, the Futurama Easter egg took years to figure out. The Mount Chiliad mystery is still unanswered. We don't know who Francis Sinclair is. Who is the strange man? Is it a alien? Is it a angel? Is it a demon? Who are the aliens in the UFO? Are they the same aliens that are represented in GTA 5? We don't know because the secondhand storytelling hasn't given us a climax yet. We don't need to know. The people who are crafting this narrative, possibly within secret while making these games, haven't told us yet. Because maybe they can't. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they have no fucking idea and they're just pulling our leg because it's fun and it gives them advertising credits, and people are going to make content on YouTube about the several topics I've discussed today, but they're not going to talk about it from a philosophical perspective and break down the understanding of why they exist. They're going to look at it from a why do they exist, but for the context of the game. I'm looking at it from a context of why it exists from a game development perspective because I find that more fascinating. There's always two sides to every story, and that's kind of mine. Butcher Creek is this fascinating area that has a lot going on, but at the same time has absolutely nothing happening. It is a disgusting and horrible place to visit in Red Dead Redemption 2, and I understand completely that people just blow it off and don't want to visit it. It's creepy, it's bizarre, the people are oddly shaped and bleh. But this makes it a hotbed for something like Easter eggs. This makes it a hotbed for storytelling. This makes it a hotbed for main story content that doesn't exist. And because of that, two artists who got upset decided to fill it with Easter eggs. We uncovered the most important one, the pentagram under the shed, and we will never know more. Because none of the other context matters to the secondhand storytelling that has already been set up. There will not be a resolution. At least that's how I feel. I hope you guys have a great day and you begin thinking about things differently. Things aren't always as they seem, and like I say, all art is art. Everything has a purpose, everything has a reason, even if it's mundane. And sometimes it's the most mundane things that are the most interesting. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.